Hi class, and welcome to our online course of Arthurian literature. We will be looking at a wide range of Arthurian texts. The main text we'll spend quite a bit of time on is Thomas Malory's Morte d'Arthur, because it's the text that has most influenced how we currently see the Arthurian legend, kind of the central text around which many of the other legends revolve. We'll work our way through to Malory's Morte d'Arthur by reading some historical documents and some earlier romances, or at least parts of those romances. And we'll also then work our way all the way through Malory. And as we read pieces of Malory, we'll read other analogs to Malory, and some that are also sources of Malory's, because most of Malory's story is not original to him. It's prior to him. And then we will finish up by reading some more modern versions of the Arthurian legend, including our final week, right before finals, watching the two movies, Monty Python's Quest for the Holy Grail movie, Monty Python and the Holy Grail. That's always been a fun movie, one of the most quoted movies, kind of cult classic sort of movie. And then, what is it, First Night? It's the Arthur movie with Sean Connery. The name's escaping me for a second, but anyway, it's on your syllabus, so you'll need to acquire those movies. One of the big things you'll need to know for this class is that you have to have the H.A. Shepard, edited by H.A. Shepard, Morte d'Arthur. It's the Norton Critical Edition. If you need to search for Norton Morte d'Arthur to find it, then that's fine. But you have to have that one because there's a lot of materials at the back of the book that you will be required to read, and you will be tested on them and quizzed on them. And so if you don't have the book, you're going to be missing a substantial portion of the reading for this class. So make sure you get that book. Don't get the Vanaver editions. Steer away from the modern translations or anything like that. Just get the H.A. Shepard book. We'll really be depending on it this semester. Everything else that you will be required to read, I will provide in class. I'll provide a PDF, or I'll provide some kind of online link to give you an idea. As far as the way this class is structured, it's really pretty basic. I'll give you readings. The readings are heavy. When I was a senior level student, I had to read anywhere from 50 to 100 pages for a class. Since this is a week, since you have a whole week to complete everything, and you would meet either 2 to 3 times in a regular scheduled class, your readings will range anywhere from 100 to 200 pages. I'll try not to do too many of the 200 pages, but you will occasionally have to read all of that. So be aware of that. If you need to, get started early. Don't get behind. You'll need to do those readings. My quizzes are detailed. And then every week after you do your reading, you'll always have some kind of video lecture. This week you will have 2. This lecture, which is the introduction kind of to the class and talking about what the class is about, and then the other one on the actual course material for week 1. Yes, you have quite a bit of work to do this first week. I know that's kind of a bummer, but you're going to learn a whole lot in this class. And one of the other things I'd like you to do this first week is go ahead and introduce yourself. There's a discussion board, and there will be a discussion board every week. I encourage you to participate in those. Not only to participate in them and answer them, but also to visit with your classmates. There's no reason that you can't have some back and forth. But your quizzes and your discussion boards are the measure of your attendance. Since you're not actually sitting in a classroom, then this is the way you're going to attend this class. So make sure you take part in both of those every week. All in all, the quizzes are not actually a huge deal in the sense that each quiz is worth about 1.25% of your final grade. So 1.25 points of 100 points in your final grade. That's not a lot, but they do add up. I think they come out to about 15 points total. And here's the kicker. Since they are your attendance, after you miss 3, it will be like you had missed 3 classes as far as I'm concerned, and you will lose 5 points off your final grade for every quiz miss, which means if you miss 6 quizzes, 3 were freebies, the other 3 means minus 15 points off your final grade. Don't miss the quizzes, okay? They're really important. And again, most of the information will come from your reading and the quizzes, or from your reading and the video lecture. And the video lecture will build on the reading. So pay attention to both. As far as myself, and I haven't introduced myself yet, I'm Dr. Karen Campbell. I just graduated with my PhD from Texas Tech. My specialization is medieval literature, and my master's degree is actually over the manuscript text of Thomas Mallory's Morte d'Arthur. So I'm actually quite up to date, quite familiar with this text and the issues surrounding it, and the Arthurian legend in general. So if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. That's one of the interesting things that I want to talk about during this course is I think we shouldn't just be looking at the Arthurian legend because, okay, yay, it's fun to learn about the Arthurian legend, and most of us know who King Arthur is, at least somewhat. At the very least, a lot of us have seen the Disney movie. But rather, I think that by studying the Arthurian legend, what we see is the way that stories change over time. Because there is some evidence of a potential historical Arthur. A kind of a Welsh warlord or kind of Celtic Roman Welsh warlord that may have existed and may have fought some battles and won and ruled a small area. We don't know exactly when, 5th century, 4th, 5th century, sometime after the Romans leave Britain in 410. And so we want to trace how from these kind of very small gleanings of the potential historical person, we get to this incredibly elaborate legend and myth. I mean, it's such an important legend and myth. In fact, King Henry VIII, Elizabeth I's father, he traces his lineage back to King Arthur. Like he draws out a whole family tree and traces his bloodlines back to King Arthur, even though King Arthur is essentially, especially concerning him, a mythical character, is a fiction. But it was such an important part of the mythos of Britain and where Britain came from that the kings were tracing their heritage back to him. And so, I mean, what becomes kind of good stories eventually even comes to have some political bearing, and then later moves on and becomes adapted in new ways, even satire, as we see with the Monty Python deal. But actually, we're going to read a story or two that are examples of even the Middle Ages writing about Arthur in humorous ways. So it wasn't always the case that the Middle Ages lacked humor. If you've taken my Chaucer class, you know that's not to be the case at all. That in fact, especially Chaucer and some of his contemporaries were really quite funny. But we're gonna look at all of this. We're gonna look at the way a legend changes over time. We're not just going to look at the way the legend changes. We're also going to look at how technology influences that. Because one of the most interesting things about the Arthurian legend, especially when you come to Thomas Mallory's Morte d'Arthur, which is the central text in the English tradition, the French Vulgate, the 7 volumes of the French Vulgate being the continental version of the legend, and in fact the source from which Mallory draws his story, cuts it down obviously quite a bit, but because Mallory's so important, what's interesting about him is we have Caxton, William Caxton, who's obviously the first printer in England, 1472. Thomas Mallory's Morte d'Arthur is one of the very first books that William Caxton chooses to print, to actually edit and print. We'll talk about these issues later on. And there's only one manuscript, and it's 1469. So we've got 1469, and here's one manuscript, and then 1472, the year that Caxton starts printing, he also prints this version of Thomas Mallory's Morte d'Arthur. And the fact of the matter is, the manuscript we have was in Caxton's shop. What's kind of cool about that is we're going to stick them side by side. Because a lot of times if you're dealing with other medieval works, like Chaucer, for instance. You'll have 60 to 80 manuscripts, and then you're dealing with as many, again, printed versions. You certainly with Mallory, as you go on down through the centuries, you have later editions, but they're all based on Caxtons. And so you have just this really neat, tight version of looking at how print culture changed manuscript culture, because you have just one manuscript and just one print source on either side of that divide. And so it's kind of this nice, tight, easy way to look at it. And one of the big things you're going to be required to do is actually look at some of the manuscript pages and look at the early printed book and see what Caxton changed. We're going to kind of look at editing issues, because all of these things also impacted the legend. One of the most interesting things is, for instance, Book 5, or kind of the Roman War episode of Thomas Mallory's Mort to Arthur, is about half as long in Caxton as it is in the manuscript. So we know that Caxton cut out about half of that book, quite a large number of lines of that section of the story. So, why is he making these choices? How does that affect the way we perceive the legend? And we've got some participation assignments that will revolve around some of these questions. And so, the main way you're going to communicate with me is through the discussion boards and through the email. Usually I check my email generally once every day. If I don't, it might be every 18 hours or so. If I haven't gotten back to you in 24 hours, send me another email. But usually I'll get back to you within 24 hours. If I haven't gotten back to you in 2 hours, please don't panic, okay? I will get back to you. I really will. I don't just totally leave you guys hanging in regards to those things. Occasionally, the quiz will be due on Friday night, and I'll be somewhere Saturday, so I won't get to you till Sunday or maybe even Monday. So be aware of that occasionally happens, but I do really try and check and keep up with things. If you have any questions, though, email me and I will get back to you. I am considerate of those sorts of things. I know people have technical issues. I try to be reasonable about them. However, I'm also reasonable in the sense that you have all week to do the work. There's no reason that you should be waiting till if the quiz is due at midnight on Friday till 11:40, and then suddenly you have the technical issues. I'm probably not going to be very forgiving, because you could have done it at 8 a.m. on Friday, and then that would give me more opportunity, because I almost always check things Friday evening before the deal, to catch that and give you more help or consideration or something. So please try not to do everything so last minute that I can't help you, and then I have not a whole lot of consideration for you because you waited to the last minute when you had all week to do it. So take that into consideration. And again, introduce yourself on the discussion board this week. We've got a couple of readings. This week we have a historical introduction. We have a timeline. We have two, we have a map and kind of some commentary on the Arthur question, the Wikipedia on Arthur, just because Wikipedia is usually kind of a good general knowledge source about those sorts of things, and those sorts of articles tend to be actually hired out to be written. They're not just this kind of big hodgepodge like some of the articles can be that make Wikipedia less reliable. These sorts of articles are a little more reliable from Wikipedia in the general knowledge sense because they're hired out. Anyway, so this is what's going on. This is what's going on with class. We'll have a midterm. We'll have a final. There'll be one paper. It's a big paper. Each of those things is worth 25%. Your participation grade is worth 10. Your quizzes are worth 15%. We already kind of discussed what your weeks will look like. That's the general kind of breakdown of this course. Like I said, reading loads are heavy, work hard, but I promise you'll learn a whole lot. Like you'll totally look at the Arthurian legend in a different way by the time you're done with this course. And I really look forward to taking the journey with you all. Again, I hope you this won't feel quite as removed as some online courses, because you'll see my face every week telling you all kinds of interesting things. And I look forward to seeing you guys introduce yourself and getting to know you. I know a few of you are revisiting from the Chaucer class, and I look forward to seeing how you all react to a new set of information, kind of a new set of problems and questions when it comes to medieval literature. So, signing off for now, and we'll see you online.